Hi, folks. Welcome to the Getting Your Edge podcast. My name is Dennis.
And hi, I'm Judy Gratton.
And we're here to help you right-size your home and your life. Hello and welcome to the Getting Your Edge podcast, how to right-size your home and life. I'm Dennis Day.
Hi, I'm Judy Gratton.
This is episode 3, and it's called The Good, the Bad, and the Adventurous, how to choose a home and lifestyle that fits your needs.
Today, we're going to provide you with information on different types of homes and lifestyles. We'll look at the pros and cons of each one and hopefully give you some information so you can begin to narrow down your choices to find the perfect home and lifestyle for you.
Well, we've got a variety of lifestyles and dwellings, so let's go through the list real quick here. We've got condos, townhomes, a rambler, manufactured home, RV, retirement community, vacation location, aging in place, living abroad, and we've got some specific information on places like desert, mountain, ski, resort, beachfront, etc. So how about we start with condo? What are the pros and cons of a condo, Judy?
Well, to begin with, the pros are that in relationship to homes, they're relatively inexpensive to buy. There are lots of choices as to where you might find a condo and how much they're going to cost, and there's little maintenance involved. Generally, the outside of the building is the responsibility of the homeowner association. And oftentimes there are a lot of amenities like swimming pools, clubhouses, exercise rooms, things along those lines.
That sounds pretty good, but are there some downsides?
Oh, absolutely. Most people are not too keen on the idea of having to pay those homeowner association dues. Those dues, though, are what take care of the outside of the building and the amenities. So they really are, everyone's coming together to split the cost of those repairs. And a good condominium will have dues that take care of all of that, so nothing is left sitting on the table. When you don't have dues that cover everything, eventually you're going to run into a situation where there's some large item that needs to be repaired. The money isn't in the budget to do it. And then the homeowners association will levy what's referred to as a special assessment. And those special assessments can be small or they can be very large, just depending on the health of the condominium association itself.
Can I interject there here for a second?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was working with a woman from a residential community, and she had purchased her condo. Well, the dues didn't cover the cost of the repairs, and they didn't do the maintenance. So she was slapped with a $50,000 assessment fee. She didn't have the money. She reached out to me to see if she could sell the cost of buying a condo with that large of assessment. She wasn't going to make any money that would allow her to move anywhere else. She was really stuck.
That is one of the issues when you buy a condominium. When you buy a condominium, you have the right in the state of Washington to review what's referred to as a resale certificate. And the Homeowners Association provides you a copy of the budget. They show you how much money is outstanding. Say they have members who haven't been paying their dues. They show you if there are any lawsuits. They give you a lot of information on the association. They also provide you minutes and budgets for the past 2 years. A lot of new buyers do not look at those, but they should, because those minutes can tell you if there's someone living there that is not the best neighbor, shall we say. So you can get a good picture of what you're getting into before you actually sign on the dotted line. You do have to have a contract in place to buy the condominium, but then you have a period of time to review the resale certificate, and if you don't like what you see there, you can terminate the contract and get your earnest money back. So it's real important to review that resale certificate if you get one.
Do your homework.
Yes.
Get your realtor to help you out in understanding it. Anything else that's negative about a condo?
Sharing walls. You're always going to be sharing walls with someone somewhere. It might be above you, below you, on either side, or all of the above. So it's a good idea to spend a little bit of time in there, maybe on a weekend when other people are there, so you can see how well insulated those walls are and see if that's really going to bother you. My husband plays electric guitar. We would not be a good neighbor in a condominium situation. So that would be probably a con for a lot of people.
And are condos as easy to sell as a home in the current market?
Well, in terms of price, they're great, but all of these, the homeowners association dues, there can be requirements, for instance, what kind of pets you can have or not have. So a lot of the restrictions in a homeowners association, their bylaws, rules, and regulations may turn some people off. It will narrow the market a little bit more than a regular residential home. There's also limited storage normally in a condominium. You will have maybe a storage unit on your deck, something like that. So you're not going to have generally a full-size garage, something along those lines. So they're not as easy to sell as a freestanding home.
Yeah, you might get one parking spot.
True.
Perhaps covered, perhaps not.
True.
So a townhome similar to a condo.
They are.
But let's talk about what makes them better.
Most of the time they're bigger. Often they're 2 stories. So you do have to look at something like stairs, and if that's going to be an issue to you. Frequently they do have a garage. They feel more like a real home. They have more square footage for the most part. Again, the interior of your home is normally your responsibility, and the exterior of the home is sometimes the responsibility of the homeowners association, and sometimes it's not. Frequently, you might even have a small yard with a townhome that could or could not be your responsibility again. So they are bigger. They're more like a home. They're also a little more expensive
Than a condo.
Yes,
Okay.
normally.
Do they have amenities?
Some do, some don't. Sometimes they have a clubhouse. Sometimes they're on a golf course. It just depends.
HOA fees? Homeowners
Yes.
Association?
Yes,
Okay.
they do.
And you are going to be sharing a wall probably with at least one other.
Yes,
family.
yes, with at least one other family. Frequently, it's going to be a bedroom wall or the garage wall, depending on the layout of the townhome.
Usually you get a garage though, don't you?
Frequently you do, yes.
Okay. You're just going to have limited storage, but having a garage is helpful.
Yes, it is. But the homeowners association may require that you park your car in the garage. I have seen that in the past where you're not allowed to park your car in the driveway even. It's supposed to go into the garage. So that could limit the storage. Again, that resale certificate comes into play, and it's very important that you read it and know what you're getting into.
And your boat or your RV or your...
Those items are generally not allowed to be parked or stored in any kind of condominium or townhome community. Sometimes they do have parking on the perimeter of a subdivision like that where you could pay rent to have a space for your boat or your RV. It's normally fenced off.
All right. I want to talk about one of my favorite dwellings, the Rambler, or if you're in some parts of the country, you call it a ranch house. And I love these because you can get them with no stairs. So you're on a 1-story living, and I envision myself staying in my home a lot longer if I don't have to go up and down stairs to a bedroom or some other part of the home. Any other advantages?
Well, normally they are freestanding homes. They could still be in a homeowners association. Many subdivisions these days have homeowners associations and what's referred to as CC&Rs for covenants, conditions, and restrictions that the developer has put into place when the subdivision was developed. So you want to know if there's a homeowners association, you want to be able to review the rules and regulations and make sure that they fit for you. We call them ramblers here, are on very large lots. Others are on very small lots. They tend to be the most popular home to buy and sell. They will sell first. They'll generally sell for a little bit more in a neighborhood than even a 2-story home because of the fact that there are no stairs. And of course, there are garages, and depending on, they could be a 2-car, 3-car, 1-car. It just depends on the subdivision that they're in. Those are all pluses for a single-story home. They take up the footprint of a single-story home normally, unless it's a small home, is going to take up more land land. So they could conceivably also be a little bit more expensive if you're buying them brand new.
Meaning they might be a little more expensive to get in, but the resale value is excellent.
Yes.
So we're kind of on that line. It's a high cost per square foot, but you're still perhaps doing yard work and maintenance and building fences and things like that.
I do know of one 55 plus community in Burlington where all the homes are single freestanding homes. They do fall under that's a whole different bailiwick, but they do fall under condominiums. That's the way they were zoned, but they are freestanding. They do have maintenance. So someone does come along and mow the lawns for you. You do have limited ability to do gardening in those homes. So there are a few out there that are more like condos, but freestanding. Not many. They're hard to find.
Moving on. Let's go to the manufactured home. So you're moving into a community and you're putting something that is moved onto the property, or you're buying one that's already there. How does that stack up?
Well, manufactured homes, they've been out there referred to as trailers. There are single wides, double wides, even triple wides, and they come on a chassis with wheels. And once they have been moved into the property, they are considered personal property, not real estate. So the taxes that you pay on them, as long as they stay on those wheels, is personal property taxes, just like a car. So you would buy tabs for them. Once you remove them from the wheels and tie them to the ground, which is really the safest thing to do so that in an earthquake or something they don't fall off, that is called title elimination. And at that point, they become real property and you pay real property taxes. Now, you can put a manufactured home on owned land where you own the land. There are parks where you own the land. The majority of the parks, you do not own the land, you rent the land. And so even though you own the home and you may have paid cash for it, you're still going to be paying rent to the owners of the park. And owning manufactured home parks has become an incredibly lucrative situation where corporations are literally looking into it, and they'll come in and they'll buy a park and they may raise the rent to something that is not comfortable for you. The thing about manufactured homes is they can only be moved once. Once you move them a second time, you cannot get financing on them at all. Older manufactured homes are very hard to get financing on, and the interest rates may be high. That's why they're generally less expensive. Although, because of all of the appreciation in all real estate values over the last couple of years, they have gone up quite a bit from what they used to be. You really need to, again, if you're going into a park where you're paying rent, you have to make application with the park managers and be approved by the park managers. They are going to run a credit check. They are going to run background, and you have to be approved based on the ability to pay the rent. And then depending on the park, you may be responsible. Most likely you're going to be responsible for your electricity, but water, sewer, and trash may be part of the rent fee. Then again, it may not. They do have restrictions as to what kind of gardening you can do. They have a lot more restrictions, but it is a freestanding home. And really, a lot of manufactured homes are laid out better than many stick-built homes. They're just well thought out, where maybe you've got a primary suite on one side of the unit and the other bedroom or bedrooms clear at the other end. So it provides people with a little bit more privacy. They generally have a lot of good interior storage, but they're just not ever going to be considered as valuable as a stick-built home, as we refer to it. So they're not going to appreciate as much, but they might. And they can be a little more difficult to sell because the park has to approve the potential buyer. And I would never suggest buying any manufactured home older than July of 1976. And that may have even changed, but that used to be the break-even point where lenders will not loan on them at all. At that point, they had aluminum wiring, and aluminum wiring can be dangerous in that when the electricity is going through the wire and then you turn it it off, it stretches the wire when it's going through, then you turn it off and the wires lag and it could cause for arcing. So there can be some fire risk in those aluminum wired older manufactured homes.
So that's the 1976. So you
Or
think
older.
about the old Centennial.
Yes.
The 1976, we had all the hoopla about the bicentennial in July. So think about anything that was manufactured before that time. Has potential to be dangerous. Doesn't have to mean. People
Correct.
can reconstruct it.
They
but
can reconstruct it. They can rewire it. They can do a lot of things. It generally does not make a whole lot of difference to a lender. So if you're looking to get a loan on a home, number one, in a park, it will always be a little bit more expensive because you don't own the land. So you're getting a personal property loan. And number two, the older they get, the fewer lenders will actually loan on them at all.
So one of the things around this area, in the Seattle area, is that most of these manufactured home parks are 55 and older. And for some people, that's awesome.
Yes.
They love it. Other people are like, maybe not. I don't want to do that. Or it really blocks out people who have children.
Correct. And if you have someone coming to stay with you for a long period of time, the park may restrict how long they can stay, especially children. Many of these parks have swimming pools and clubhouses and things like that. And so far I've run into a few of them that will not allow you to bring your grandchildren into the pool. So again, you need to review the rules and regulations of a manufactured home park and make sure you're going to be happy there. Maybe get to wander around and meet some of the neighbors. I keep using my husband, the electric guitar player. He probably would not be welcome in a manufactured home park because they kind of like it in the 55 plus to be a little quieter, and he's not. So
Well, one of the nice things I've seen about the manufactured, some of the parks really have a community feel. The clubhouse, the activities, bingo, card playing, trips, Christmas parties or holiday parties. And it can be a really fulfilling place for people to live.
if that's the sort of thing you like. Absolutely. If it's not, that may seem to be a little intrusive. What do you like as an individual? And then you should be very aware of what that park rent is. And if they are, a question to ask, are they anticipating any large price hikes in the rent in the near future? Because they will almost always raise the rent. It could be anywhere from $10 to $50 a year, maybe even a little bit more, just on average. I know of one right now, and the homes that have been selling in there, they are advertising that as of January 2023, their rents are going from like $700 a month to over $1,000 a month. A new management company has come in. They've done a lot of updates to the property and the roads and things like that, the clubhouse, whatever, but they are raising the rent significantly. And people on a fixed income, they may not be able to deal with that. Really, the only choice they have is to sell the home. And
You can't move it off.
you really can't move it off. I mean, you can. It's expensive, but you'll never get it sold to anybody who's looking for a loan if you do.
One of the worrisome parts about manufactured home, we spend a lot of time on it, is that these parks are in urban areas are highly sought after. And we've seen this in around our area where the park is sold by the owner. Everybody has to move off so that they can build luxury condominiums.
That can happen.
You don't have a lot of guarantee that you're
No.
going to be there forever.
No, you do not.
So
And the problem again is selling a home that needs to be moved is close to impossible. So there's risk involved in buying a home in a manufactured home park. I know a lot of people who have lived in a manufactured home park, absolutely love it, and have been there for years. So you just need to do your homework around the park and understand that there's no sign sealed in stone that you can stay there forever.
all right, let's move on. This is a lot of people's dream. Selling the home, backing it up a big RV, and hitting the open road.
Yep,
Sounds fun.
it does.
What's the advantage?
Well, it's flexible. You can go wherever you want to go. Your home goes with you. There is a sense of community among RVers. They love to meet up in the different RV parks and whatnot, get to know each other, and you could conceivably be able to work from your RV because of the internet. It provides you with a massive amount of freedom.
I have a friend who did just that, sold his West Seattle home, and took the RV. They've been traveling for 3-4 years. They loved it, absolutely loved it. I mean, they were in Vermont for the leaves turning. They were in Florida in the winter. They were able to go to places in the West, the big national parks, in kind of an off season when other people aren't there. And it was really a fantastic experience for them. But they lived in 110 square feet.
Yes, yes. So talk about downsizing. That's about as downsized as you can. Well, I'm sure you could get more, but yes, it becomes very small. Those are very expensive per square foot when you think about it too. And then you have at this point in time, I don't know of any electric RVs. So you have to pay for the fuel, which is outrageously expensive, those large amounts of quantities. So you have to really be prepared for an output of money to do the RV situation.
You have to maintain the vehicle too.
Absolutely.
The same friend of mine, they went to Labrador, Canada, and this is a very isolating place. Well, their vehicle broke down and nobody had the part. So they were sitting there in Labrador for a week waiting for a specific part to be flown in from the States.
Mm-hmm. I can't even imagine what that must have cost. And then just like any other vehicle, RV's resale value is going to diminish exponentially the minute you drive it off a lot. So the more mileage on it, the poorer the resale value.
And you don't have a home to come back to. I know that people get in that RV and then sometimes it just really isn't the lifestyle that they think it is, or they get tired and they don't have a stationary home that they can come back to. If you can do the RV and have a home to come back to, that's kind of the ideal thing to do.
I have had clients do that. They bought a brand new manufactured home. They put it in a 55 less park, and they had friends in the park already, and then they had a beautiful RV. So they would use their RV, which they were able to store at that park in a storage area for RVs, and they would go out in their RV when they wanted to, and then they had a beautiful brand new manufactured home that they really loved, and that was perfect for them.
One of the things that we haven't really talked about is if you're in an RV or doing a beach area vacation home is things like health, dental care. Because if you're traveling all over the place, you're going to have a plan that allows you to go to a doctor anywhere, and you won't have one specific doctor that is yours.
And I learned this from our little condo down in Long Beach. There is a very small hospital in Long Beach. They have very limited services. If we had a major medical issue happen while we're in Long Beach, and that would be true of any place where the population is small and they have limited medical services, you will be airlifted to someplace that can accommodate your needs, or at the very least put in an ambulance. So you better make sure that your insurance covers that type of transportation. There is insurance out there that will pick up airlifts and ambulances and things like that. But if you're moving around a lot, especially like in an RV, or even, for instance, in my little beach town, you need to be aware, what is it going to look like to get medical, dental services, things along those lines?
Well, speaking of healthcare, one of the options that people have is moving into a retirement community. And this could be a small apartment called assisted living. It could be a more intensive care. But there's some real nice advantages to these kinds of communities. Can you talk about that?
There are. It's sort of many of them are a la carte. So if you don't need any real help, you can just rent an apartment. We have everything from shag, which is, there's not a lot going on there other than those are senior 55 plus communities, to the more assisted living where there's on-site medical staff, where they provide meals if you want them. If you don't want them, you have an apartment and you could cook your own food. So it just depends on what you need. And the more services they offer, the more expensive those communities become.
You might not even need a car.
No.
Because these will offer a bus trip to the grocery store,
True.
the library, or other adventures. So you could abandon that car and get rid of it.
And it might become more of a liability because parking is limited, even in the best of situations. And so you may have to pay for parking that car. So frequently people will eliminate the car in that type of living situation. But they go on trips. They have trips for the holidays. They have have dining rooms. They have entertainment that comes in. They can take you to plays and take you to doctor's appointments. And they frequently have medical staff that there's there 24/7, but they can be incredibly expensive.
I know. Like, we're talking about $10,000 or more a month. It can be horrendously expensive. And the more care you get, the more amenities they offer, the more expensive. Thinking about a retirement community, you're going to have to think about the buy-in fees. And this is just a large amount of money that allows you to move into that community. It can vary drastically. So pay attention to how much that's going to be.
And there are waiting lists in the really good ones. I have someone who's interested in selling her home, but she's on a 2-year waiting list to get into the retirement community, assisted living community that she would like to live in.
One of the things my mother experienced was that there was bad food. She was in one that was just dreadful, absolutely dreadful. And then we moved her to another one. And the food was good until the lockdown. And then they basically released all the cooks, and she had a turkey sandwich every day for lunch for months and months. Food became really, really dreadful. So that's one of the biggest complaints that seniors have when they're in a retirement community. Check out the food before you decide which one you're going to go into. Also, you don't build any equity.
No.
This isn't your home. You're not going to get a better retirement nest egg from a buy-in on this one. And the huge variation in quality of care. Be very careful if you take one of these. All right, let's have a little more fun. Let's talk about vacation locations.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, those are great. And people frequently will gravitate to areas that they enjoyed for recreation at other times during their lives. For me, it's the beach. I love the beach. The beaches in Washington are not sunny and hot. They might be warm at best in the summer months, but they're absolutely gorgeous. So weather for me is not so much of a deciding factor, but it really is for other people, especially people suffering from arthritis. They tend to want to gravitate to warmer climates, like maybe the desert, or if they loved hunting or fishing, maybe it's the mountains. I mean, there's any number of places, or they're moving to be closer to relatives. That's another thing that people might consider in terms of vacation, or not vacation locations, but a new area, because they want to be closer to family members. Just if you're going to do that one, you better make sure those family members are going to stay put, because the worst thing would be to move somewhere and then have them pick up and leave, and now you're in a new location and you don't know anybody. You might want to make sure that you have that discussion with someone if you're considering moving to be closer to someone.
So these vacation homes can be peaceful, beautiful, quiet, safe. You can really build a community in some of these. And some of them have some tremendous amenities. I mean, like for the beach, it's the beach.
It's the beach.
Yeah.
But there are golf course communities in the desert, in Palm Springs, in Arizona, and it just depends on what it is you're looking for. Again, the more amenities, probably the more expensive those situations are going to be, especially in sought after places like the beach and the desert.
So let's look at some of the downsides of a vacation area. One of them is it could be expensive.
Correct.
And it could be crowded
during the high season.
The high
Absolutely.
season.
Absolutely. Traffic becomes snarled. There are a lot of people. Distance to healthcare again. Really, that's a very important thing to consider. Who's going to take care of you if something goes wrong? And generally, you'll need a car to get around from point A to point B, unless it's an assisted living or a senior community that has that built in.
Yeah, my parents lived in a quaint little beach community in Northwest Washington, and they loved it. They absolutely loved it. It was the best 10 years of their life, they said. But it was a 30-minute drive to the doctor, and that was a regular occurrence because they were both in their 80s. And it was a 30-minute at best to get the ambulance to your home. A lot can happen in 30 minutes.
When you have medical issues, that is definitely something to consider. And then, there's the social aspects of it. And for instance, against churches? Do you have a faith that you enjoy and practice regularly? And is that particular faith, whether it be Christian, Muslim, Jew, whatever, Buddhist, do they have facilities near you? Otherwise, you may not be able to practice your faith. You may not fit in with the rest of the community, and that might be difficult. So whether or not you're LGBTQ in certain areas, that might be difficult as well. So these are all things. That's why we really stress, go out and practice those things that you're dreaming of to make sure that they really are a good fit. But for me, I have to think about, like, can I get my nails and my hair done? So I've got all that set up where I live right now. If I move down to Long Beach, that's a small town. I don't know, where am I going to have to go to get those things? And like we talked about the dentist, the doctors, if you have pets, is there good veterinarians in that area? What if you're going to travel? Is there a place that you can board your animals to have them taken care of while you're gone? And then, of course, food. Restaurants, grocery stores, everything that you rely on where you are you going to easily be able to get those things in that new location, no matter where you choose to go?
So some pros to a rural area, but there are also some downsides, that you're not going to have the services that you will in a suburban or urban area.
No, you will not. Normally, you will not.
Let's talk about one of my best ones. I really love this, the age in place. Judy, tell us what that means.
That means not moving out of your current home. And there's some real pluses to that if you can do it. In most cases, you have already built up equity in that home. And frequently, those areas have become incredibly expensive, at least in Washington state, where if you move out of an area, you just might not be able to afford to move back in. So there's a lot of value in many of the cities in these areas, and you bought at a time which has given you with a lot of equity. When you are ready to move, there will be incredible resale value. So being in your home, staying in your home, if you can do that, all of your social needs are pretty much already set up and ready to go. The emotional aspect of being able to stay in a home that you've been in for some period of time is huge. There's just a lot of pluses if you can do that. Stairs are always something to consider for a lot of people as they downsize. Long can they maintain with stairs? What if you end up in a wheelchair? There's a lot of what ifs that you would need to consider. But aging in place, even if you're on a limited budget and you have equity in your home, there is an animal called a reverse mortgage, and we will have someone come to the program and talk about what those look like and how they work. But you can utilize some of that equity to help you continue to survive and maintain that home. So there are a lot of pluses to aging in place.
I have a few examples.
Okay.
One, my next door neighbor, they had purchased the home in the late 70s. They were getting older. The stairs were a problem. So they built on to the back of the home, and now they have 1,000 square space that is connected to their original home, and they allowed their family to move in. So their son and daughter-in-law and their grandchild to move in to the original home. And they've got built-in family. They've got people they know already. You've got a built-in baby. You can be the babysitter if you want, but you could also just go back into your space and close the door. Another example was somebody I knew through Rotary, where they really wanted to stay, but they couldn't do the stairs, and they were worried about that. So it's expensive. They put an elevator in their home, and now they can stay. They can keep their community, their church, all the services, their doctor, etc., and they can keep building equity.
Mm-hmm. So aging in place is definitely something that could be considered and something to think about. And hopefully we'll have some experts in that again, and another one of our episodes that can give you more information on what that looks like.
One of the things I want people to think about is if you're going to age in place and you're going to do an extensive remodel, that you really need to be kind of confident that in your health, that you're going to stay there a while. Otherwise, you're going to pay a lot of money into a expensive remodel and deal with the mess and so forth. And then if you have to move because your health fails, you're not going to be able to recoup that cost unless you're there for several years.
True, because the next person buying will most likely not be looking at it from the same point of view that you are.
We've seen this market that having a home that has two different living spaces is highly sought after. It's got great resale value.
Yes, it does.
One more here. Let's go live abroad. We're going to do a whole big episode on this on individually, but we just wanted to mention it. Some of the things that are exciting, moving to another country. It's exciting. It might be less expensive. It could be peaceful. You could be closer to a lot of different other experiences. Like if you were living in southern Mexico, well, South America's not that far away. All the areas of Mexico are a lot closer and so forth. So, but what are some of the downsides?
Well, you're away from family normally. You're not going to take everyone you know, and you better make sure you have your passport and keep that up to date so that you can come and go back between the two countries. And when you're dealing with a different country and a different government, you don't know how that's going to pan out. So I would definitely be doing a lot of research to make sure that you're going into a country where it's actually safe for you to stay for any period of time. And then healthcare. I do understand, actually, my brother lives in near Puerto Vallarta now. And initially he was told that Medicare did not work in Mexico, but in the last month or so, he has discovered that it does. But he also knows more about once you're there for a certain period of time, you can actually qualify for the Mexican healthcare system, which is a lot less expensive than ours, and especially prescription drugs and things along those lines. So the healthcare, you need to know that you're well informed on that. Of course, there could be a language barrier. How are you going to deal with that? And then again, you're away from your family.
Again, tremendous experience.
Yes.
Do your homework.
Yes. I was in my youth, I actually was very lucky to be able to live in Japan for 2 years, and it totally changed my perspective on the world. And so I highly recommend that people, if they want to try it out, do your homework. And there are a lot of expats out there, that's what they're referred to, that thoroughly love living in other parts of the world.
So in a future episode, we'll bring on some people we know who actually do live abroad, and they can talk about
what
the
that
good,
looks
the good,
like.
the bad, and the adventurous part. Let's go to some specific places like the desert, the mountains, the beach, a rural area. Mm-hmm. How about the desert? What's good?
Well, the weather. In the winter, the weather is wonderful normally. I mean, you can have a few cold days, but it's much gentler, milder in the winter months in the desert than it is in many parts of the country. Not so good in the summer. So if you think you're going to live there year round and not bob back and forth between two locations, you better go there and visit in the summer and see if you can stand the heat.
Was born and raised in the Pacific Northwest, and I've got rust in my veins here. I could not tolerate a desert where it's over 100 degrees day after day after day. I just couldn't handle it.
Well, and with global warming, it's gotten hotter. I lived in Arizona in the early 80s, and even then it was nothing for it to get up to 105, even 110 sometimes. And the thing that was so frustrating is you want to cool off and go in the pool. The pool is not cool. So you spend a lot of time going from one air conditioning building to another. But during the winter months, it was great.
What a mountain. Great for the summer, but
Great for the summer. There could be snow issues in the winter where you might get stranded. So if you're going to be up there, you better make sure you've got all the supplies you need. Again, you have the issue of medical. Are you going to be able to get to the medical treatments that you need especially if there are weather issues? One of the other things that's come up over the last few years, which is very, very sad, but it is something to consider, and that's fires. When those forests dry out in the summer months, I mean, we have seen thousands of acres of fires, and it would be tragic to get caught up in that. So that is something to consider. Winter would be tough unless you love snow sports, but again, if you get snowed in, you better be prepared for that.
I just was on a call with somebody she loved her mountain town up in the Colorado area, that she was able to ski all winter, and in the summer she was able to mountain bike all over the place.
Yeah.
She loved it.
Yeah. There are Montana, Colorado, Idaho. There are some mountain cities that are just incredible year round.
How about the beach? I know you are very fond of the beach.
I am a beach fanatic. I am an ocean person. I love my ocean. I don't care if it's storming. I don't care if it's windy. I absolutely love the beach, but salt water is tough on housing of any kind. I mean, maintenance is a year-round situation at the beach, especially up here in the Northwest. It just destroys wood, it rusts metal, so you have to stay on top of the maintenance. And then depending on what beach you're at, I mean, if you're down in Newport Beach, California, I'm sure you can find a hospital or a doctor within 5 minutes of where you want to be. But Long Beach, Washington, it is a very small community, and there is a hospital, but it is a very small hospital. If you have a major health issue, you're probably going to be airlifted to someplace else. So you better make sure you have that insurance. But our winter months in the Pacific Northwest, they can be brutal. It can snow at the beach, which happens to be something on my bucket list. So I'm hoping to be there sometime when it snows. But it can snow. We have torrential rainstorms. There can be flooding. And of course, there's always the risk of tsunamis and earthquakes and things along those lines whenever you're looking at the West Coast beaches, not so much on the East Coast, but those are warmer, but then they have their hurricane season. You need to be prepared for those things if you can, to the best of your ability.
So one more area is just moving to a rural area. I hear this a lot, that people sell their suburban home and they want to go to a small, quiet, safe area that is away from the big city because they're just tired of it. So it can be really nice. It can be quiet. It can even be less expensive than an urban area. Mm-hmm. But there are some downsides.
There are. The medical issue. Are you going to be able to get health care when you need it? As a lot of rural area medical facilities have shut down in the last few decades just because of lack of funds to keep them open. And so that's really critical that you understand the medical aspects. Do they have what you're going to need? And then really, no matter where you go in the United States, there's always some weather issue. We have our storms, we have our earthquakes, we have tsunamis at the beach. You have snow in the mountains, there are fires, there are hurricanes, there are tornadoes. So you need to be aware of what you might encounter in the area that you're moving to, and if that's something that you feel comfortable dealing with, and then ideally make preparations. I am a strong believer in being prepared for emergencies so that you can deal with them if you have to. The other thing to consider in rural areas is the social aspect. You're farther away from people. There may not be, again, the same religious or faith-based institution that you're looking for. Power outages could be longer. There's a lot of, it's a beautiful, quiet, restful, wonderful place. But again, it's not right for everyone.
Yeah, it could be a good hour drive to Costco.
Costco?
Yeah. Yeah.
They might not even have
a Costco.
Might
not even a Costco, right. My parents lived in that small town on the beach, and they had a tiny little grocery store, very expensive, and it was a 45-minute drive to get anything above the very basics. All right, we have some must-dos before you decide on making this big change. You must do.
Yes.
Like?
Go visit it in the off season and see if it's something that you're comfortable with. If it's the desert, go visit it when it's hot. If it's the beach, go visit it when it's cold. If it's a rural community, investigate your healthcare options. Can you afford two homes? Can you go to the desert in the winter, be a snowbird, and come back to wherever the Northwest or wherever you happen to be from in the summer? That is, if you can do that, that's wonderful. If you cannot, you better make sure that you can live in the place you choose to live in.
Must do. Mm-hmm. Investigate, plan, stay there for a long time, not just visit for a weekend.
Mm-hmm. Ask questions, get to know the people that live there, see if you feel like you can fit into that social community.
Our last option, we'll go real quick with this one because I know a lot of people are doing this. They're not selling their large forever home. They're renting it out, mm-hmm. and they're living abroad. They're using the RV. They're going to a vacation community, and they're experimenting about where they might want to go permanently. Mm-hmm. Nice thing about it is that it builds, you continue to build equity in that home. while you're away. Mm-hmm. What are some of the downsides?
You are still responsible for the majority of the maintenance, and you better know that your tenants are good at maintaining the home and taking care of the home and following the rules that you set. It's really tragic when someone gets in a situation where they have tenants that are renting the home that stop paying rent, because to get them to move is a long, drawn-out process that costs you, the owner, a lot of money. You have to evict them, and you can't do that overnight. You also, in most areas, I know here in the state of Washington, there are a lot of rules that are very supportive towards tenants and non-discrimination and things along those lines. So you as a landlord can be limited to not discriminating against a family when you really don't necessarily want a family in your home because you don't really want children in there, or you tell them, I absolutely don't want you smoking, or I absolutely don't want cats and dogs, and you go away and you're not there to see that they bring those in, or they start smoking in your house, and it's very, very expensive to do the repairs. So if you know that you have great tenants, I would hold on to them. They are golden. And Airbnb, there are many people who are putting their homes into an Airbnb or a short-term rental, like maybe for traveling nurses, things along those lines. Again, turnover is going to require maintenance to get the home up and ready to go between tenants or between stays in an Airbnb. And again, with Airbnb, you don't know who's going in there. Ideally, you can do some checks to verify that they're going to protect your investment, your property, but sometimes it doesn't work out that way.
Being an absentee landlord, it's kind of tough.
It's very hard. I've done it.
You can also do a property management company.
Yes.
But that's going to eat at your profits.
That is, but it's probably worth it, because then at least you have someone here who has an eye on your property. I wouldn't get your best friend or your family member to do that for you. You could end up losing your best friend or family member if things don't go well. It's better to hire professionals to take care of that for you.
All right. Wow.
A lot of information.
A lot of information, folks. One of the things we need to do is get you the freebie at theedgegrouprealestate.com. Get freebie that just lists the pros and cons for all these different ideas and thoughts about moving and changing your dwelling and so forth.
That's all we've got, folks. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. How to find a home and lifestyle that fits your needs. The freebie that goes with this episode, the good, the bad, and the adventurous. How to choose a home and lifestyle that fits your needs. Can be found on the podcast page of our website. Go to www.edgegrouprealestateservices.com. Find that freebie, download it, share it, whatever you need. Our next episode will be a little different. We'll have a special guest who is a home inspector, and he'll share how to maintain your home so when it's time to move, you don't have expensive repairs. That episode will drop in 2 weeks. You can get it anywhere you find podcasts, including now Apple Podcasts. Yes, we've hit the big time. As always, if you enjoyed this podcast, we ask you to share it, like it, make a comment. Give us some feedback. We'd love that. Till next time, that's it. Goodbye, and take care. That's it, folks. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for future episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks. Goodbye.